There was once I was in a college campus town on a national holiday somewhere, and I'd started out early that afternoon with some friends. And it was time to go home. So we were all walking home. And somebody that I knew saw me on the way home. And he said, "Hey, come on, let's go." And I said, "Okay, I see you guys later." And I turned around, I went back out with that guy. And it was time to go home. And I said, "I gotta go home." And so I'm walking home, and I ran into somebody who said, "Hey, hey." I'm like, "Hey." And we go back out. And somewhere in there, I ran into D-Day, and I was drinking with D-Day. By the end of the night, I have a memory of walking home and somebody going, "Hey," and I swear it was D-Day, but I don't know. And we ended up out in this bar, and I was with people. I'm like, "Hey," and I said, "I'm gonna sit down." They said, "Come on, sit down." And I sat down, and I swear that D-Day was there, and we were all talking with each other, and we were having a good time. This is one of those things where you go, "Is that real?" It turns out, talking to D-Day later, he was never there. I just imagined D-Day was sitting with me and we were talking to these people. I may have been D-Day at that point, talking to these people in his stead so that I could fill the same line of shit that I needed to fill that I couldn't put out without him being there. I needed a backup, so I made him in my mind. Next thing I know, I'm standing on a 3-story damn sun deck of a sorority house looking, and somebody's yelling at me. I came to out of a blackout. See that? 3 stories up. I somehow knew where I was standing. I was in the middle of that thing. This girl's going, you. And this is the thing. 90.5 FM KSJS, San Jose. When I did the Dawn of Betrayal on that station, they made us fill out some things as DJs that said questions, and one of them was wildest night of drinking, and I put that in there. It was supposed to be just a short line, and mine was a whole story like it is now. And so there I am. I'm standing in the middle of this 3rd-story sun deck on this sorority house building. I'm like, what the hell? And there's this girl standing there going, la, 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 la. And these 2 big guys standing behind her. And they're standing over, looking over her shoulder, these giant guys. And I said, and she's saying, yeah. And I said, I don't know. And she says, "I called the cops and they're on their way." And I said, "No, they're not." I didn't believe her. And I'm sitting there thinking, these 2 giants, they should have been throwing me 3 stories down by now. But they didn't know what the hell to think. They're over this little girl's shoulder as she's screaming. And in the middle of me saying, "You didn't call the cops," I realized she did. And I stopped mid-sentence, standing there in the middle of that damn thing. And I turned around and I went running. And I jumped off. I didn't just fall. I leapt off into the air like the Batman. And I'm flying, and I did a parachute landing fall. I'm convinced in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where Jack Nicholson climbs the fence and into the tree and drops down, he does a parachute landing fall. I'm sure that they had an a paratrooper consultant on set teaching that, unless he learned it as a kid doing Geronimo stuff like I did, jumping off of things. But that's paratrooper stuff. I did a parachute landing fall, a PLF, from 3 stories in the air, leaping off into the sky, and landed halfway across the lawn. Did a parachute landing fall, got up, and I was wiping it off, and as I was wiping the grass off my pants legs, I looked up and a cop car pulled up, and there was this door opened and this young looking cop looked at me and I looked at him, and I thought, I don't have time for court. And I said, pow! I just took off, and this guy was after me. I bolted across the road, and there were these trees, these little shrubs like they have for a, it's for landscaping. What do you call it? Landscaping and knowing whose property is whom's. And they've got it set up. And I'm running towards it thinking, I hope there's not a fence there. And I went busting through. And I went, and I hit the ground. And I was dragging myself up with my fingers in the grass and running, and I could hear that young cop, and he was like a super cop. You don't see those very often. He was a young super cop straight out of a Stephen King novel, taking gunshots in the chest, He was coming, I could hear him breathing coming behind me, and I was like, and I said, and I bolting through that backyard thinking, I hope there's not a dog back here. And I remember thinking, if I get caught by this guy, I'm going to be embarrassed, because I'm a runner. I'm not supposed to be able to get caught. I may not be Kenya style running, but I'm better than a lot of people at it. So for me to get caught on foot, I was thinking how embarrassing this would be. And I said, I have to start running again. That's the whole thing. I've told this story before, but this is what it's about. And busted through the trees on the other side of the way, and I, somewhere in there, I didn't hear him anymore. I got away. He was that close to having me by the ankle. And I moved through the shadows like the ninja, took the ninja entrance to the dorm where I was supposed to stay that night, because I had a plan to stay somewhere. And I went up there, and there was nobody to be found that I knew. And so I made it home. But this is the point. I wasn't doing anything wrong. They shouldn't have encouraged my drunken behavior by throwing a holiday for it. Point is, if you're going to be an innocent person, you need to be able to run. We don't have time for court.